No state legislature is without their scandals, issues, and just people who probably shouldn't be there but somehow managed to get elected. The scandals are from both parties. According to an article on PBS.com, there have been 147 lawmakers in 44 states accused of sexual harassment in the last 8 years. This chart is from govtrack.us and it shows the misconduct cases in US government by type and decade. According to ballotpedia.org, the Michigan Democrat Virgil Smith allegedly shot at his ex-wife's car 10 times. They were married for a total of 2 months. According to the same website, in Virginia, Democrat Joseph Morrissey gave a reporter a picture of himself and a teenage female he is accused of sexually assaulting and her child to a reporter, which many saw as tacit admission of the sexual assault allegations. According to NPR.org, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is facing allegations of misconduct after $10 million of state money somehow got spent on his election. This video is not about any of those people. It is about 3 people from the Minnesota state legislature. Democrat Nicole Mitchel is accused of breaking into her stepmother's house to steal mementos of her dead father. Democrat Curtis Johnson is accused of not meeting residency requirements and therefore can't be sworn in to fulfill the duties of the seat he was elected to by the people he supposedly lived in community with. And last, but assuredly not least, is Justin Eichorn, the Republican senator who tried to pass a bill that would have made Trump delusional syndrome a recognized mental condition in the state of Minnesota with 4 other legislators. Later that same day, he did some things you shouldn't do with people that aren't 18. This is What the Fuck Minnesota Legislator? And we'll dig in and learn all the details of all these crimes of all these lawmakers right after my overly obnoxious trigger warning. Roll the intro.
My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines where the sun don't ever shine, I will shiver the whole night through. My girl, where will you go? I am going where the cold wind blows. In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine, shiver. Oh, my girl, don't lie.
If Mitchell had stuck to her original story, I could understand her motives and would probably even feel a little sorry for her. Taking them in chronological order, Mitchel is up first, so let's go ahead and learn about her. Around April 24th, 2024, a little before 5 a.m., police were summoned to a Detroit Lakes home after the woman who lived there called in reporting a burglary in progress. Police arrived on the scene a little while later to see someone dressed in all black with a black hat on run into the basement. She was also carrying a backpack and a flashlight. The woman was found in the basement and arrested. The backpack contained 2 laptops, a cell phone, Tupperware, and Nicole Mitchel's ID. Using the ID, police identified the intruder as Mitchel, a Democratic Minnesota State Legislature representative. On the scene, Mitchel claimed that she only illegally entered the residence to obtain some mementos of her dead father, and her stepmother had stopped talking to her and her siblings after the father's death. Mitchell claimed she sought pictures, a flannel shirt, ashes, and other items of sentimental value. If Mitchell had stuck to this story, I could understand her motives and possibly even feel sorry for Mitchell. But she did not stick to this story. One of the laptops had Mitchell's stepmother's name on it when it was turned on. Mitchell claimed her stepmother had given her the laptop, and Mitchell's stepmother denied giving the laptop to Mitchell. Within days of the incident, Mitchell took to Facebook to defend herself. Mitchell claimed she went to the home to check on a relative with Alzheimer's disease after getting some troubling medical news. In the statement, Mitchell claims she's come and gone from the home numerous times over the last 20 years and that her son even had his own bedroom there at one point. She goes on to imply that her stepmother has Alzheimer's disease, claiming the police were called in error and that the theft allegations are also the product of an old woman's debilitating mental condition rather than anything grounded in reality. Mitchell faces charges related to the burglary that still have not come to trial over a year later. The Minnesota legislature has called for her to step down immediately. She has refused to do so. There have been 2 attempts to vote her off the legislature by the legislature. Both of them failed to pass. Even if she is found guilty, Mitchell will still be able to legally sit on the legislature, who has no regulation barring those convicted of felony crimes. She is not expected to win her next election. So now that you know how a burglary suspect got onto the state legislature, let's talk about Curtis Johnson. Through video footage obtained with the assistance of private investigators, it was proven that. Next up is another Democratic legislature member with a political crime. This kind of story happens all the time in the US. It should not, but it does. What makes this case particularly newsworthy is that after the 2024 elections, the 134 seats in the Minnesota state legislature were split evenly between Democrats and Republicans. Generally speaking, the party with more seats in a legislature is given privilege over the other party. Possibly you've heard the terms majority and minority leaders in the federal Senate. This is the majority and minority being referred to. It has huge implications over which party gets to lead the various committees run by the legislature that actually determine how the state's money is spent. With a tie, all the committees are co-chaired with one party from each member in the chairmanship, which creates an incredibly balancing effect on the state's laws and budget. After the election, Republican Paul Wickstrom filed a motion alleging that Johnson had not actually lived in the apartment in the district he ran from for 6 months prior to the election. Johnson has 2 residences in the state, one that he owns and the apartment he rents in the district he represents. Therefore, the argument comes down to how much time he spent at each residence. Through video footage obtained with the assistance of private investigators, it was proven that Johnson did not live in the apartment he rented in the district prior to the election, which means that he cannot be sworn in to represent that district. As this decision has temporarily given the Republican Party a 1-seat lead in the number of seats held in the state legislature, they refuse to engage in any sharing of power within the legislature. Johnson is still fighting this decision, not on the basis that he actually lived in the district, but rather on the grounds that the motion had to be filed before the election and not after it. The state Supreme Court already upheld the decision, so now it has to go before the federal courts. But the whole time this fight is going on, the Republicans maintain that 1-seat lead, and the will of the people of Minnesota is not being met. The fight has actually served to solidify the vote that got Johnson elected in the first place. Wickstrom pissed off everybody who voted for Johnson by bringing the suit. Johnson has pissed off everyone who voted for Wickstrom by continuing to fight it. This means that there's a really good chance that if Johnson just stepped aside and let some other Democrat who actually does live in the district run, they would win the special election. Now that you know all about how two Democrats are acting in a very unbecoming manner for state legislatures in Minnesota, let's learn about the Republican who attempted to solicit an underage prostitute for sex. This prompted Eichorn to engage in a discussion about the legal age of consent in Minnesota with the other person. You might not know Justin Eichorn by name, but most people know him by reputation. In March, SF 2589 was introduced as a bill in the Minnesota State Legislature. An excerpt from the definition section of this bill reads, Mental illness. A. Mental illness means trump derangement syndrome or an organic disorder of the brain of a clinically significant disorder of thought, mood, perception, orientation, memory, or behavior that is detailed in a diagnostic codes list published by the commissioner, and that seriously limits a person's capacity to function in primary aspects of daily living such as personal relations, living arrangements, work, and recreation. Eichorn was one of the authors of the bill, and this case is about something that happened later, the same day that bill was introduced in the state legislature. Eichorn ran as part of the Make America Great Again movement in 2024 and won the election for his seat in the state legislature. I did not research his previous political career as it is not important to this case. On March 17, 2025, Eichorn was part of a team consisting of 5 Republican state senators: Eric Lucero, Steve Drzowski, Nathan Wassenberg, Justin Eichorn, and Glenn Gruenhagen, that authored and backed this bill. The bill has been referred to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, which, because of our second story, is currently being chaired by a Republican instead of being co-chaired by a member from each party. On the same day that this bill was introduced, Eichorn went online and arranged a date with a sex worker. Eichorn found a person he believed to be a sex worker online after asking for naughty pics and even asking her to send something with a lot less clothes on. The person Eichorn was communicating with told him they were only 17 years old. This prompted Eichorn to engage in a discussion about the legal age of consent in Minnesota with the other person. Generally speaking, the age of consent is 16 in Minnesota. This means that a 17-year-old is able to consent to sex with an adult so long as the other person is not in a position of power over the teen consenting. Arguably, that makes this law not apply to anyone in state government, as all of them are technically in a position of power over everyone else in the state. That discussion happened after Eichorn had agreed on pricing with the individual and before they arranged a time and place to meet. But that time and place were arranged. When Eichorn showed up at the agreed upon place to meet what he thought was an underage sex worker, he was immediately taken into custody by the FBI. The person Eichorn was communicating with was actually an undercover agent posing as an underage sex worker as part of a sting operation. The operation led to the arrest of 14 men. Eichorn was one of them.
Can I get you a glass of milk to go along with those cookies?
Eichorn's wife, Brittany, filed for divorce within days and as a result of his arrest. This would seem to indicate that Brittany thinks the charges are valid, otherwise she would have waited to see the outcome of the court case. Hey, if his wife thinks he's a cheating dog that hires underage prostitutes, that's good enough for me. After his arrest, police conducted a search on Eichorn's apartment where they found a handgun. After Eichorn stated there were no guns in the apartment. Additionally, while they were searching the apartment, a woman appeared and asked if she could retrieve a laptop from inside the residence. Authorities refused to allow her inside and she left. It later was discovered that Eichorn had been in contact with the same woman from jail. He had made statements to her about the phone not being a secure line and to keep the conversation to basic stuff. It was on one of these calls that Eichorn asked the woman to retrieve the laptop. Only one laptop was found in the residence, and details of what it contained have not been released to the public. It also resulted in Eichorn resigning from the state legislature via phone from the jail and his name being removed from the bill as an author. This temporarily left the legislature back in a party tie for the seats. Governor Walz, the vice presidential candidate from the Harris-Walz ticket in 2024, called a special election to replace Eichorn in April. Republican Kerry Heintzman won the special election and restored the one-seat lead to the Republican Party in the state's Senate. Eichorn is currently awaiting trial. Let's wrap this video up, shall we? Like I said in the introduction, what the fuck, Minnesota Legislature? I heard about the Justin Eichorn case from a meme, and while I was researching that case, I found out about the other two cases. I didn't even dig that deep into the legislature, and I found 3 huge legal scandals from both parties. I don't know about you, but I'm curious and scared about what other dirty laundry this state legislature has in its hamper. You might be wondering why people who don't live in Minnesota care about what's happening with the Minnesota State Legislature. Well, there are 2 reasons. First of all, these people are elected by the same people who elect the federal representatives from that state and are even allowed to vote for the POTUS. I know, shocking, right? Secondly, state-level politicians are kind of like the minor leagues for the federal government. Many federal senators and pretty much every qualified president has held state-level offices prior to being elected into the federal government. So seriously, Minnesota, what the fuck is going on with your state legislature? Why are you electing these schmucks? Why are the people in this state not completing their due diligence before voting? What do you think about all this? Let me know in a comment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, as always, super thanks and channel memberships are super cool. And now, I got a jam, so tag, you are it. Democrat Curtis Johnson is accused of not meeting residency requirements and therefore can't be sworn in to serve in the seat he was elected to by Using the ID, police identified the intruder as Mitchel, a Democratic Minnesota State Legislature representative. What makes this case particularly newsworthy is that after the 2024 elections, the 134 seats in the Minnesota State Legislature were split evenly. After the election